Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name is Dyl, and we are finally wrapping up our post-Cannes Oscar predictions. And sorry, these were supposed to be the month of June. This is coming out in July, but just stay tuned to next week because our fresh, updated Best Picture lineup will be out. We've both seen Past Lives, so now you can see if it's still at number one for me, or it's dropped down, or for Matt, it's risen up. But we are talking specialty categories today: international, documentary, and animated. So Matt, kick us off. Best international feature.
Best international feature. This is a fun one to talk about now because Cannes is done. Pretty much all of the movies that are going to be in the lineup at the end of the year have screened by now. We know so much more about them. So at number one, I have Anatomy of a Fall, the Palme d'Or winner. I have The Zone of Interest at number two. Now I have both of these movies in for Best Picture, and interestingly, I have The Zone of Interest higher in Best Picture, but I have Anatomy of a Fall winning here. How could that be? Well, let me explain. When we look at international feature, both of these movies are going to be nominated, and if both of them have a picture nomination, they're both going to be very widely watched. So even if The Zone of Interest is a little bit stronger in Best Picture, Anatomy of a Fall is a more conventional movie. It is a thriller set in a courtroom. It has a great performance that's probably going to be nominated. It is an accessible movie that I feel like everyone is going to enjoy. Versus The Zone of Interest is a very cold movie. It's experimental. It's, from what I've heard, going to be one of the weirdest movies ever to be nominated for Best Picture because it's very out there. It's very formalist. It's different. It's trying things that are exciting, and there's barely any story. So when you put a courtroom drama thriller with Hitchcock elements beside an experimental Holocaust drama, which one do you think is going to get more votes from everyday average people in the Academy? And the answer, in my mind, is Anatomy of a Fall. I think this is going to be the first time we see a Best Picture nominated international film lose, and that's only because we're going to have two Best Picture nominated international films. If Anatomy of a Fall misses Best Picture, Zone of Interest wins here just out of pure visibility. Whatever is most seen will win the category, but if both of them are most seen, Anatomy of a Fall will win.
I think you make some great points, so that's actually something I hadn't really thought about, is if these are both in Best Picture, which one fits more to a wider audience? I know this is not a direct one-to-one comparison, but your arguments there kind of reminded me a few years ago of when we had Worst Person in the World versus Drive My Car. I know Worst Person in the World did not make it into picture, but it did make it into original screenplay, and that was a movie a lot of people said was a lot more receptive to a wider audience, where Drive My Car was very much a type of movie for a certain audience, while Drive My Car still walked away with the win. However, the caveat there is Drive My Car was in picture, Worst Person wasn't. So if these are both in picture, maybe it goes the other way around this time.
So I've talked about this in the past. In your international lineup, you should have 3 European films, and so at my number 3 spot, I have another European film, and that is Fallen Leaves from Finland. This film is apparently absolutely lovely. I'm trying to get my hands on a copy of this right now, so hopefully I know a little bit more about it soon, but it got some of the best reviews out of Cannes. It sounds wonderful, very uplifting, joyful, and that to me feels like a nominee, as long as the director doesn't withdraw himself from consideration again. Then at number 4, I have El Conde, the Pablo Larraín Netflix movie. We know Netflix will probably get a nomination here. This one is going to go to Venice. It'll probably hit TIFF. It'll probably get very good reviews out of those festivals. Do I have it in my picture predictions like I once did? No, because I have 2 other international movies, but El Conde should still be in your top 5 for international feature. Also because not every movie in international feature can come from Cannes. You have to have some Venice, at least one Venice movie. Then at number 5, I have How Do You Live. I am not confident about How Do You Live being in my top 5 at all. The marketing scheme of this is worrying me a lot. They're not marketing it at all in Japan, and I assume they're not going to do advanced screenings, festival releases. They're skipping Venice, they're probably skipping TIFF, they're definitely skipping Telluride. This movie might only be seen in limited release when it comes out in theaters in like December. If that's the case, this movie is fucked. You need to to have critics on your side for a movie like this. And if critics aren't on your side because critics haven't seen your movie, you're fucked. I'm scared for it.
I currently don't have How Do You Live in my top 5 because I have Japan picking another movie that is my
They're
number
not picking
4 slot.
Monster.
You know, they might not pick Monster, but I think there's a better chance they pick Monster than they pick How Do You Live, at least at this moment. I do agree that you should have 3 films coming out of Europe because I have Perfect Days from Germany at my 5 slot with the aforementioned 3 that you had before of Zone of Interest, Anatomy of a Fall, El Conde, and then I had Monster filling out my 5. This is the fun part, especially with international feature, is you don't know what countries will submit because sometimes France has a movie that probably would win if they submitted it, and they continue to not submit said movie, so other countries could probably follow that path as well.
So I have Perfect Days at number 6. I do think that if Japan doesn't go with How Do You Live, they go with Perfect Days. I've seen Monster now. It's a very good movie. It doesn't feel like Japan's submission to me, especially because they have a trend. They haven't picked a director 3 times in this century yet. I think one of the last times they picked a director 3 times was like Akira Kurosawa in the 1970s. So it's very rare. So I don't see Hirokazu Koreeda getting a 3rd selection from Japan. Then at number 7, I have About Dry Grasses, a very interesting prospect, but Nuri Bilge Ceylan has not had a movie shortlisted before, even though he's been submitted a ton. I think the same thing's gonna happen here. This does not feel like a movie that's for the Oscars. Then at number 8, I have a film from Iran, which I have seen, Terrestrial Verses. I think this is a very strong contender for a nomination if it gets selected by the country, because it is extremely critical of Iran's government and of Iranian society. It's a great film. It feels like an Oscar nominee, but again, probably won't be submitted. So that's why it's at number 8 and not at number 5, because if it gets submitted and if it gets shortlisted, I think this movie's in. Then at number 9, I have The Peasants from Poland. This is an animated movie. We just saw a trailer come out for this. It looks absolutely gorgeous. It's likely to hit Venice, and it's likely to hit TIFF, and it's likely to hit Telluride. It's going to be a critical success. It looks stunning. Then, number 10, I have Four Daughters, which is a documentary hybrid. We could see another international documentary double nomination happen here. I think it's a really strong contender from Tunisia. Only thing about that one, it does not have a great distributor, which is going to hurt it quite a bit. Some other films that I'm just going to quickly mention here. The Captain and La Chimera from Italy are both films that could get in. La Chimera is now Neon's basically 3rd priority though, so it is no longer a top 5 film as I once had it, and also it might not even be selected by Italy. Then there is The Delinquents from Argentina and The Pot au Feu from France. That movie would be in my top 5 if Anatomy of a Fall was not my number 1. So The Pot au Feu is going to suffer from the fact that it is a French movie in a year where Anatomy of a Fall is going to be a Best Picture nominee. Then I also have The Settlers here, as well as Lost in the Night and Rice Boy Sleeps. So that kind of rounds out my whole international list. And let's move on to documentary feature.
All right, here we go. And the man who knows so much about documentaries is up this time for the first time in months. So, you know, I'm sure I'll have some L's on here, but I did some research. I looked at various other pundits and said, what do they have? And then I made a smorgasbord. So number 1, I have Beyond Utopia. Number 2, The Internal Memory. 3, 20 Days in Mariupol, and 4, The Deepest Breath. These are the ones I feel the best about because most people had at least 3, if not all 4 of these all on their list. Can I give you specific reasons? Not really, but from doing research from other people, this looks like our top contenders so far.
I'm telling you right now, man, 20 Days in Mariupol, nothing else can win. I said it last time, I'm going to stick with it. 20 Days in Mariupol is unbeatable in this category in my mind.
I remember you saying that, but also, again, another reference to Oscar Expert and Brother Bro. Their video that they just had come out recently, they mentioned how parts of the movie are a little grotesque in terms of blood, in terms of violence, that could be off-putting a little bit. So I'm just going to wait until more eyes are on it. If it doesn't seem like it's that big of an issue, then yeah, let's bring it back up. But I remember that Beyond Utopia got raves out of Sundance earlier this year, so it's just the early Sundance favorite that stays at number 1 and could fall off eventually. But for my number 5 slot, I figured let's take a swing. Let's take one that is in the moment right now. It'll probably die off before the end of the year, but still a Michael J. Fox movie has been getting a lot of positive buzz after its recent release, and he's a very recognizable person. That doesn't always mean that you get into this category, but it's gotten a lot of positive critical support, and it could be, you know, just a feel-good type movie where you put in here.
That movie has gotten a lot of positive reactions. Now, one thing I will say, 20 Days in Mariupol, I think, yes, it's very graphic, but it's so important that people will overlook that. I would say at least put it at number 2. The Eternal Memory has no chance of winning. It's a race between Beyond Utopia and 20 Days in Mariupol. The Deepest Breath, wait and see what happens when it comes out on Netflix in 2 weeks. If the movie becomes a sensation like My Octopus Teacher, watch out for it. If it gets forgotten, like I kind of think it will, then it's done, it's over, it's out. And I think that you should watch out for Bread and Roses. This is a film that played at Cannes. It's about women living under Taliban rule in Afghanistan since the Taliban took power again. And Jennifer Lawrence produced the film. There's going to be some Hollywood push there, and it's a very feminist film, which I think the lineup kind of needs a little bit of this year.
That is a great point. That's one that I don't remember seeing very often on those lists. So, that's why you come here, because we have a documentary expert here on the channel. It's just not me. One other one I would like to mention, because you had in your international lineup, is Four Daughters. I remember that we talked about this one a little bit more heavily before Cannes. Its Cannes reaction was a little bit mixed, so it has me a little bit hesitant, but as we've known in the past, sometimes they like to double up an international and documentary feature, and this is the one this year that could. You see the rest of my list here. It will be ever changing, because this is a category where I basically have no thoughts of my own, and I intake from other people and say, who makes the best argument to me, and I follow you.
I'm gonna wear you down with 20 Days in Mariupol, and I can't wait for you to see it, because I think this movie is going to make an impact on you.
Outside of Summer of Soul from a few years ago, when is the earliest a documentary winner was released to the general public? Because I know they often show at festivals early in the year, but then they still come out in the later portions.
Well, that's actually a really great question. So I'm going to go through some of these, and I'm going to try to remember when they came through. So Navalny last year was a March release, so that's basically as early as it gets. And my whole argument against Navalny last year was, well, this came out so early that people are going to forget about it by the time the Oscars come around. Summer of Soul, of course, was like a July release. My Octopus Teacher was, I think it was September release. American Factory was summer. Free Solo was in the fall. So yeah, it kind of goes back and forth. I think a prime spot for a documentary win here is probably the summertime. July, August is a really great time for documentaries to shine.
Good things to note, because like you just mentioned, 2 contenders here come out in the month of July. But with that being said, documentary features, category where we may not know who number 1 is. International feature, it's a race for what number 1 is. But animated feature, I feel like we know what number 1 is.
See, you might not know what number 1 is in documentary.
I know what number 1 is.
I know what number 1 is in documentary.
For documentary, yeah.
It's 20 Days in Mariupol. I'm telling you right now. But let's talk animated feature. We won't waste any more time. Number 1, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This movie is going to be nominated in like 6 categories. I think I have it at like 8 nominations right now. It's winning animated feature. It could win adapted screenplay. Hell, I'm gonna say that winning Best Picture is not impossible for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I'm not saying it's likely, I'm just saying it's not impossible. Then, at number 2, I've got Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget. And you're gonna look at me and say, Matt, what happened? Why is How Do You Live at number 3? The answer is, they're not marketing How Do You Live in Japan. They're likely going to skip every single festival here. How are they going to get the critical support that they need? How are they going to get audiences to see this movie and support this movie when they might release it at the very last minute? And if Studio Ghibli insists on no marketing in the States, this movie might not even make the top 5 at the end of the year, which is tragic. It would be so sad if Miyazaki's final movie did not make the top 5. But Chicken Run is number 2 right now. Netflix is going to push the hell out of it. The first movie got a lot of critics' love and probably would have won Best Animated Feature if the category existed that year instead of the year afterwards when Shrek won the first prize in that category. Number 4, I have Wish. We need a Disney movie in here. It's Disney's 100th anniversary, and Wish is the one to beat here. Elemental is not in the game. It flopped at the box office. It flopped with critics. Number 5, I have The Peasants. This is really going to depend. Does it get a release that's good enough to get a nomination? Does it get critics support? And does this play Venice and TIFF and Telluride and the New York Film Festival? If it plays all the fests, this is in. If it doesn't, and if it gets a shitty distributor, this is not in. And instead, TMNT Mutant Mayhem will take its place, because this movie is getting rave reviews from early screenings at the Annecy Film Festival in France. TMNT sounds absolutely amazing. Everyone loves it. Honestly, it probably should be my number 5 over The Peasants right now.
Well, you said people were going to be mad at you for putting How Do You Live at number 3. I have it at number 6. So
What?
if I was doing an animated feature, every reason why you listed there is what I think is going to happen. I don't think a movie, regardless of who is the creator of it, can get in without a push. On the other hand, though, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, yes, that's 1. Chicken Run, yes, that's 2. Wish, 3. TMNT, 4. Maybe even put that at 3. 5 is where the real question comes in. And I am dumb, and I'm still putting Elemental in.
No.
It has gotten a lot better reviews since it came out at Cannes. It's now into the fresh. It had a great week to hold. It's not going to set the box office on fire, but people who are going out to see it from the general audience are liking it. And overall, its critic scores are rising. While I said it's dumb, I don't think it's impossible. I think it's a lot more likely than other movies people are picking, like the Super Mario Bros. Or some other animated movies that had not come out yet or are coming out soon that have an angle. I still think Elemental is higher. So Elemental, How Do You Live? Take your pick at 5, at 6 for me. Peasants, I get your argument, but I'm waiting until a distributor.
Number 8, I have the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and I don't think this is going to happen. It has horrible reviews, but it has $1 billion, basically. Does it have $1 billion?
Yes, it has, I think, $1.3 billion.
$1.3 billion. So it is a big moneymaker. It's going to get PGA nominated. It's going to get Golden Globe nominated, but that doesn't mean it's going to get Oscar nominated. We see stuff like that happen all the time. Things like The Croods 2, Sing 2, or Sing. You see that type of movie get those odd nominations for animation, but when it comes to the Oscars, they usually go with the more artful choices rather than the commercial choices. Then at number 9, I have Nimona, coming from Netflix. This one is on Netflix now. It's getting great reviews. I would have it a lot higher, maybe even in my top 5 if Chicken Run didn't exist. But hey, last year, I would not have said that The Sea Beast feels like a nomination, and Nimona is fitting exactly into the same box as The Sea Beast. Good reviews, a June release date, Annecy premiere, and then Netflix just lays dormant on it until suddenly, oh, nomination.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was about to say the exact same comparison.
Then at number 10, I have Robot Dreams, which is coming from Neon. This film played Cannes to great reviews, and of course, Neon has it. They're gonna push it. I don't think they'll manage the push. It's a very indie movie, but you know what? Maybe if The Peasants doesn't happen and How Do You Live doesn't happen, maybe Robot Dreams is the indie pick that gets in here.
I feel like this category is just like last year, where we kind of know our lineup all year long, and give or take the one Disney movie that we're like not sure what to do with. And I feel like we're in the same boat this year, where we know probably 3 to 4 of our nominations, and it's just slot 5. What's it going to be? Is it going to be a critical pick? Is it going to be a mainstream pick? Or is it going to be a little movie that was forgotten but brought back at the last minute?
Honestly, I would say Wish, I think, is pretty locked at this point. I think it would take a disaster for Disney to have no movies in.
I would agree, but I would have said the same thing last year with Strange World. Said it would take a disaster, and a disaster happened.
Yeah, but this is a musical, and it's a musical that's going to win Best Song.
I think Wish is a very strong number 3. Just, I think there is a slight angle where it could blow up and fail.
There definitely is, and if that happens, Elemental's back in. But anyways, those are our predictions. Wrapping up all of this round of predictions, we do these every single week, and next week we're going to be starting all the way back over with Best Picture again. We're halfway through the year, which means we are halfway to the Oscar nominations for next year. And hopefully we're improving. Hopefully we're getting closer to what we'll actually be at. That's why we do these every single week. You can see our progress through the entire year, all the way till the very end. So make sure you join us next week for our fresh set of predictions. And as always, my name is Matt.
My name is Dyl, and this is Fantasy Filmball.